Hi, I'm Larry Schwartz, president of LARICK Machinery Incorporated. Before starting LARICK in 1988, I was an engineer for a medium-sized cabinet manufacturer since '74. In the mid-'80s, we discovered the stretchable, Velcro-backed abrasive that is used on LARICK'S sanding wheels. This sanding system cut our edge sanding time for 200 doors a day from 14 hours to less than 2 hours per day. As a bonus, our door quality improved dramatically because we sanded past the end grain tear out, so the ends didn't turn black after staining, and our finish didn't absorb like a sponge. We want you to have similar success with our profile sanding system. In this video, we'll show you how to change sandpaper on edge sanding wheels, Cove and OG raised panels, as well as setting up machines. We'll now show the details on how to successfully install sandpaper on an edge profile wheel. We use an installation stick that's about 30 inches long. We nail a little block of wood on the bottom of the one end so that when we lay it on a table we can pull against it and it will hold it. The angle that we cut the top of it is such that for your particular profile it will lay into the profile and give clearance on both sides, so that when you put the sandpaper on, it will actually have about 10 degrees clearance on both sides of it, and will force the sandpaper into the deepest part of the profile. We start with a strip of sandpaper, and we'll take a scissors and split the end of it about 1.5 inches in. Now, to install the paper so that it makes its initial contact in the deepest part of the wheel, we'll fold it over, kind of pinch it together, put the end of our slit about in the center of the slot on the wheel. You can actually push the sandpaper down to make sure that it makes contact in the deep part of the wheel. Hold it down with a finger, pull the tabs of the sandpaper through the slot of the wheel, stick them to the Velcro on the outside. The free end of sandpaper then, again, we'll fold it over, take a piece of Velcro, stick it to one side, loop it around the end, stick it to the other side. That closed off end then will stick over the end of our stick, and that allows us to pull the wheel and stretch the entire length of sandpaper. It only needs 1/2 to 1 inch of stretch is all. Now, I'll hold my sanding wheel with my right hand. With the left hand, you need to fold the paper over so that as I roll the wheel down, it forces that paper into the deepest part of the profile. And you take a new grip, you go back and get the sandpaper pushed back down before you go again. So that pushes the paper into the deep part of the wheel. The rest of it pretty much falls into place on its own. To finish this off, we'll take this Velcro off of the strip, split the sandpaper up to about the center of the slot in the wheel. Now when we do that, it lifts the paper away from the Velcro, so it needs to get seated again. I will pull on the sandpaper, peel it loose from the Velcro, stretch it out, push it down into the center. Pull the tab through the side. Sometimes you pull both tabs through. Now, if you look in here, the sandpaper is not tight, and I'll pull on the tab, pull it out until it tightens up. That's the angle that you stick it to the Velcro. Do the same with the other side. Notice how it tightens up as you pull it and change the angle. So stick that down, then check the first side that you put on. If it's not down tight, you can peel them loose and again pull them until they tighten up. If you pull the tabs out too far, it will actually lift the paper in the deep part of the wheel. Okay, the wheel is now ready to be used. Most of the sanding wheels will have a tilt angle on them for an outside edge. This one is tilted back 20 degrees. So our spindle tilted back because these parts are run face down. Okay, for the initial setup, what we'll do is take the part, mark it with a pencil so that we can tell what we're sanding. You can visually sight through the sight along the fence and visually adjust the wheel up, down, in, out to about fit the profile. The other thing, you put the part against it, hold it, turn it by hand. After you install new sandpaper, if there's a spot where the paper is not seated down tight to the Velcro, it will have a lump in it and be a tight spot as you turn the wheel. The other thing that can do, turning by hand, gives you a visual on where you're actually contacting. Here we're taking just a little bit of pencil mark off here, really nothing much on the back side. So we need to bring the wheel forward a little bit. Try it again. Now I can just see that it's starting to touch on the back side. On the front side, again, we're taking the pencil mark off, so it's possibly too high. So we'll drop it down just a little bit. And if we feel like we're pretty close, I actually turn the machine on then and make a test pass. Now don't start at the end. What I like to do is start with the end of the part against the fence, just bump it in, move it a little bit. Now I can take a look at it. I'm really taking all of the pencil mark off on the side, although there are a few smudges left on it. Top side, again, there's just a few smudges left. So that's actually very close. Take another test. Again, take a look at it. We're leaving a little bit of pencil mark on the side. We're leaving a little bit on the top. We probably need to raise it up just a little bit. Test it again. What we're trying to achieve here is removing most of the pencil mark. Now there's just a few little smudges left on the side and just a few little smudges left on the top. That's pretty much ideal. The secret to getting long life out of the sandpaper is sanding very lightly, or as lightly as possible. Usually one light pass going with the grain is sufficient. On end grain, that usually doesn't take enough material off, so you make a couple of light passes on ends. That smooths out the end grain nicely. Now if you notice, as I pushed that across on the end, I didn't just push the drawer front across, because what happens eventually, when it hits the wheel, it catches the part, pulls it back, the corner digs in and tears your sandpaper. So what we have is a little push block that we follow the part, push the part through with the push block whenever you're doing short ends. To change sandpaper on a raised panel cove, we'll start with a round disc of sandpaper, but what we need is not really a round disc. We need a bowl shape to fit the profiled wheel. So what we can do, the sandpaper has arrows marking the direction of stretch. If you take that, hold it so that you pull on it in the direction of stretch, take it over the corner of a machine or something that won't really poke through it, but it'll put a little stress on the center and rub it back and forth. If you can stretch the center out, we no longer have a flat disc, but now it's starting to be a bowl. Then we'll cut about a 2-inch hole in the center of it. Now, to install the sandpaper, I flip it over, again with the direction of stretch going away from me, start it kind of centered on the wheel, and actually pull it apart so that sideways it stretches out. Now, if I just hold that down a little bit, I can take and pull the sandpaper down. That holds that end. Now, this end, I'll hold the sanding wheel with these fingers, and with the thumb and index finger, push the sandpaper. By stretching the center of the disc out, the outside edge will roll over farther. You kind of go around it that way. The first half that we put on, just to kind of keep it from popping loose, peel it back, and again, stretch. Turn this so you can see. Stretching, pushing the center out. Another way to do that would be to start the sandpaper on as I did before, but rather than doing one whole side, we just do a little bit at a time, and just kind of keep it lifted up and push it a little bit, turn a little, push that out. So again, we're working from the center toward the outside and just going around and trying to stretch the center out. And just start turning and go a little bit farther at a time. This way you usually keep the wrinkles out of the sandpaper a little bit better. But as you see, if you stretch it far enough, the outside rolls around and makes contact pretty much every place where it will be contacting and sanding. But if we just fold that over, we'll get some big wrinkles that come up on the outside edge. So we'll take a scissors and make slits in from the edge. And I'll actually stop the slits about 1/4 of an inch from the edge of the wheel. By turning it around this way with my finger on the bottom, I can feel any wrinkles that want to come up. Now, if the sandpaper is seated well on the wheel, I can cut these little slits about 3/4 of an inch or an inch apart. But if I feel a wrinkle coming up, then I can cut them closer together. Maybe 1/2 an inch, maybe 3/8 of an inch apart. And go all the way around the wheel with my little slit. And then you can go around and kind of pull those down and let them overlap each other. Sometimes they lay in all by themselves, other times they need to be pulled. Then we use an O-ring as a rubber band to hold it down, and can start it on one side. These things don't work to roll them on. You have to stretch it and snap it on. But I'll start it on one side, lift it up, and just kind of pinch the part between my leg and the table, and just snap it on. Now if I go look around the wheel and see if there's any wrinkles coming up. You know, here we've got a wrinkle that's sticking up a ways, so what I'll do is just grab the tabs on both sides of it, pull them, that will pull that wrinkle out. Most of the places it's sticking down real well. Once you're satisfied with that, stand it up on edge and just roll it over, which presses on the O-ring, forcing the sandpaper down into the groove. Now, some places, as you stretch the disc, it gets longer on one side than the other. So now we can take the scissors and go around and trim our excess sandpaper off. Now we have a wheel that's ready to sand with. We're now ready to set up the Model 360 sander for panels. The fences have been removed because there's no need for them, because we use a rub collar as a guide. The rub collar does run live. There's no real need to have a bearing because it runs against the outside edge of the panel, which is going to be buried anyway. On the 360 we have horizontal adjustment, so we'll bring it forward till we're at about the edge of the cutout in the table. Raise the wheel until there's just a little bit of resistance felt as you slide the panel over the wheel. Now, to see how it sands, we'll mark the profile with a pencil. And just test sand a small spot. Notice I'm lifting the panel off the table until I get against the rub collar. And as we take a look at that, pencil marks are removed. There's a little bit of a smudge left on it. So it takes very, very little down pressure to actually sand. So to do our normal sanding, end grains require more than just one light pass. So I'll start against the rub collar, feed it across, bring it back, feed it across again. That gives me 3 passes on the ends, keeping the part against the rub collar at all times. To install sandpaper for an OG raised panel, the ones with the little hump in the middle, the wheel actually has a hollowed out spot. We need to be careful putting on sandpaper that we don't stretch it too tight, because it would go straight across from that point to that point, sanding too much off of the hump on the profile. So we'll start out doing the same thing as we did for the cove raised panel, taking a disc of sandpaper, pre-stretching the center of it, cutting the hole out, now on these it's very important to really stretch the center of it out. So we'll start out, sticks pretty good, doesn't it? So we'll start out really stretching the center, working our way around it. Now with that stretch in it, it will pull itself down into the hollowed out area. And then the outside, it rolls on over the edge. Now on these, we actually cut many more slits in the outside than we do with the OG, because we can't really pull it at all. So these I'm cutting about a ½ an inch apart. And then when I pull the tabs down, I'm not going to pull very hard on them at all, but rather just basically fold them over. All the way around. Now I'll just basically push these down, kind of straighten them and flatten them out as I go. Yeah, if they look like they're kind of folded over okay, I'll start the O-ring on it, and again I lift the thing, pinch the wheel between my leg and the table, snap the O-ring over it, and then start looking at it. Where there are big wrinkles like we have here, just grab the tabs on both sides of them and pull those out. Here we have another one. Kind of work those to where you get it about as smooth as you can and minimizing the wrinkles. And once I have it where I like it, then again I'll roll it and press that O-ring down in, which will suck the sandpaper tighter. Now, when you stretch it, the paper only stretches in one direction, so on the sides that it doesn't stretch, it's pretty close, but where we've stretched it, we've got quite a bit of paper hanging over, so we just turn it over, cut that off. And we have a wheel that's ready to sand, which now should fit our profile. Now that you've seen how to change abrasive and sanding machine setup, I'll give a few hints which will hopefully get you on track. Raised panel sanding is the simplest setup, but you must have a consistent depth of cut. We make our panel wheels for a certain size rub collar to match the sample supplied to us. If your depth of cut increases, the rub collar will follow the edge and not let the sanding wheel go into the profile. If the depth of cut decreases, the wheel will go in too far, sanding way too heavy, resulting in short abrasive life. By using a rub collar, fences are not necessary, so the only machine features needed are vertical adjustment and variable speed, which describes our Model 120 profile sander. We like to sand face down because we have a better feel of the part and can go back and forth over a section to sand out burn marks or defects. Edge sanding should be done using the same reference side as shaping so that the profile doesn't move up or down. You must also have a very straight edge coming off of your shaper. The profile sander acts like a jointer, taking off about 3 to 5 thousandths of an inch, or about the thickness of a piece of paper. If the parts have a wavy edge, or the ends are sniped to 64ths of an inch, you may have to sand that edge 5 to 10 times before it is straight and all of it is sanded. So check the parts, tune up the shaper if necessary before attempting to do profile sanding. Fence alignment is very tricky to get a nice straight edge from a shaper, and I can't go through that setup here. But fences are the main reason we have fixed fences and horizontal adjustment on our Model 360 profile sander. We align our fences, lock them into place, then crank the spindle back and forth with the hand wheel, giving fast, easy adjustment while the machine is running. You should sand as lightly as possible to maximize abrasive life. If you mark the profile with a pencil and a ballpoint pen, it's okay to remove the pencil line, but if you're taking the pen mark off, lighten up on the sanding. You'll get much better sandpaper life by making 2 or 3 quick, light passes rather than one heavy pass. Another thing we like to do is tilt the wheel to keep the profile as shallow as possible and the paper as flat as we can. This makes it easier to change abrasive and also gives better life. If the profile is being sanded heavier on one part of the profile than another, you may have to change your tilt slightly. Even a 1/4 degree change can make a big difference in how the wheel matches the profile. Spindle speed is not critical with our wheels, but 1800 RPM is maximum. If it's too fast, you might see some burnishing with fine grits on some woods. If you do, slow the spindle down, replace the sandpaper if it's worn out, or feed the parts through faster. Generally, you get a better feel of the sanding at lower RPM and more aggressive sanding at higher speeds. Some of our customers report much longer abrasive life at low speed, so experiment and pick a speed that feels good to you. Thank you for your interest in the LARICK profile sanding system. Please call us for more information on our complete line of user-friendly sanding equipment.